So from the age of probably about 12,
Yeah.
I think, we moved to the city, and then I got introduced to, they had the pop music and stuff that was going on there, and I kind of discovered bands like Transvision and things like that. They were great. And we had, I can't remember them now, but and then we had remember there was Depeche Mode came out. I've got Black Celebration here, but I think it was a Spill and Spell, whatever the
Speak and Spell?
that was a Speak and Spell.
And I'm not even the Depeche Mode fan, right? Well, was
But I think it was that album, and I kind of discovered that I like kind of darker sounds.
Yeah.
It was also electronic, so a lot of the sounds were new, and also coming from like 50s, 60s happy pop to something a little bit darker and a little bit more obscure. Things like Bowie, got the Pet Shop Boys, that kind of stuff. But that was, I think, kind of where for me, I started kind of delving into to different sounds without kind of realizing that's what you're doing. So that took me up to there. And then I discovered, I think it was from about the age of 13, 14, somewhere around there. Yeah.
You discovered Boys.
Guns N' Roses.
Boys.
So yeah, it was at the time. So it was Guns N' Roses. At the time, I think there was a lot of hair metal, the glam bands.
Yeah.
I wanted something. I was very angry, so I wanted something a bit more with attitude. Right. I think, and a lot more aggression. Also, I mean, these four guys just really did not give a toss at all. and it was also where my interest in trying to play guitar started. I was a huge Slash fan and decided I wanted to play guitar like Slash. Guitar was not my instrument. Didn't even manage to to get the chord changes. Did not work for me. Before then, obviously, I did try and learn piano when I was younger, so it was very much the 50s, 60s pop. I've always tried to play in musical instruments. It's always been there, but it's just been as it is with you. Sometimes you got to battle through things, right? But yeah, guitar didn't work for me. So this was kind of my entrance into like kind of where I am now. So it was Guns N' Roses, and then it was Metallica, which was also obviously kind of on the same level. It was the next step for me, and absolutely loved this band. And as much or as controversial as he was, Lars was my favorite, and I wasn't even playing drums at that point. So I didn't even think about being a drummer. He was just my favorite.
It's pretty Danish, isn't it?
Maybe. I don't know, but yeah. So then it was Metallica, and then I got introduced to Alice Cooper. So it was Alice Cooper's greatest hits. So it was Alice Cooper. He was also very different, very very edgy, very rough, I suppose.
Yeah.
Is the word. And just they just sang about all the stuff that was taboo in my house. So that was great. So and that kind of took me to just before I started getting into the more extreme stuff at the time. So yeah, that was kind of up until the end of high school, I guess.
High school for me was a massive learning curve. I mean, I was about 11, 12, and I discovered hard rock.
Yeah.
So I think it was Dire Straits' Money for Nothing. It was the first time I really heard dirty guitars and really hooked me. And I got quite into that, like the Dire Straits and that kind of thing. And I tried to listen to a lot of what was considered hard rock, and it bored me. And then I went to my friend's house in Standard 4. Don't know how to translate that into the English school system. I was about 12 probably. And his brother had got Painkiller. And my life changed. End of story. Heard Painkiller. And then I got into this. So this is what I call the classic metal pile, but really it's your Mercyful Fates, you know, your Iron Maidens, which I got introduced to, Priest, and the band that started all, Black Sabbath. Absolutely fantastic band. Sabbath I actually found myself, I'd heard of them, but nobody had any. People were listening to Priest and Maiden and that, and I walked into a pawn shop and they had this album, Monster Reality, on cassette, and I bought it and was blown away. It was the slow sludginess of it, and then I went, of course, the Sabbath, I hit it in the middle and went backwards and forwards and found that I preferred the earlier Sabbath to the later Sabbath at the time. As I got older, I realised I really loved Ronnie James Dio, so later Sabbath is really special too.
I got introduced to Ozzy. Before Sabbath.
Fair enough.
So.
And then, of course, Angry Young Me, Mercyful Fate. I mean, and this was like probably the most evil thing I'd heard at the time, and it was fantastic. But it was, as you were saying about Stories, it's quite a narrative album as well. So the metal me suddenly discovered all this stuff, and it was fantastic. And then the other me, right, because this is how I worked. As I said, it was quite a journey through high school. So it was just a little bit after I got into my metal, I started listening to 70s hard rock and prog. So Yes and King Crimson and all of that, and Led Zeppelins and all of that stuff. And I discovered this band, Pink Floyd. Absolutely blew me away. It's the way they just went off with things. Became an absolute Pink Floyd nut. And of course, digging further into it, get things like the Moody Blues. People know them by Knights in White Satin, but great songwriters. Hard rock band, but still a prog band, and still a metal band, even though they never saw it then. Queen, fantastic, absolutely fantastic band. Prog was cool though, because later in life, and I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but it's all related, it introduced me to stuff like Opeth, which is a bit of the later stuff I heard, the jazz I grew up with, and the prog that I found myself. And of course then you get one of my all-time favorites, Blue Oyster Cult. It was the band that introduced me to good songwriting with bizarre lyrics. You're as beautiful as a foot. Now, I'm not done. So, like all good stories in high school, this involved a girl. And at the time, I was into my metal. And she dropped on my lap this very unheard of at the time band, who are now an institution on their own right. And that is how I became very into my Death Doom. I didn't like death metal then, but that dark, romantic somberness and the violins and all of that got me into Death Doom and then into Doom. And then because of the Sabbath, I came back to stuff, and I got very much into a bit of the beginnings of Stoner at the time, but my go-to band in a lot of high school was My Dying Bride.